I have noticed couple of times with different developers, like they are struggling with getting the values of the reference fields as well as even the fields which are the normal fields, like even it is a text field or it's a image field or file field, and they get confused like what different approaches. We have different methods to retrieve the value of any field. So people get confused like in which case which functions or which method should be used to get the value. So in this topic, we are mainly covering the normal fields which are not reference field. We will be covering the file fields or any media field, and along with that we will be covering any other reference fields as well. So we will be going forward with node, then term, and then we will be covering what are the common properties of users that we can have direct function call rather than using some different approaches to get the values. And after that, we will going forward with reference fields. So let's start with this node. So for node, actually we have several inbuilt functions available to get the values. For example, when we are creating any content type, let me walk through you. Okay, so whenever we are going to create a new content type, in that case, we have by default title option, we have body field, then we have some additional options here, like its status. Is it promoted to front page or not? Is it a sticky to top of the list? And share, is it open for creating a new revision? So all of this called the properties of that node. And in addition to that, we can add new fields to our content type as well. But those are a part of fields, not the properties. So first, let's discuss about the uh, properties of the node. So we have the title as a property. We have type. We have that option like promoted to front page or not. We have one additional property for that sticky to the top, and we have created time and the body field, right? So I think this is a very common thing that people gets confused how to retrieve the value. So I have prepared one content to cover these items. Okay, so let me walk through how I have created that content type first. So in this content type, I have taken one paragraph reference field, and there is one plain text field which is multi-valued. If you go to storage setting, you can see that it's unlimited. Then we have one file reference field, one image reference field, a taxonomy term reference, and taxonomy term reference for multi-valued field. So these two fields will identify which function or which method we should use in order to get the values. Either it is a single valued reference field or it is a multi-valued reference field. And again, we have one user reference field. Okay, so I have created one module for pre-processing the node. So let's just dump the node first. Okay, so we have all the field values, and here, as you can see, there are field values along with these properties like node ID, VID. So this all we will be terming as its properties. So we generally came to scenario where we need to either get the node title, its type, or whether it is promoted to front. So based on that, we will check how we can retrieve the values. So for example, if I need to get the title of node, in that case, I just simply use that function of node tends to get title. So in this case, we can retrieve the value of that node. And similarly, we have other properties for getting added type. So for that, we are having that get type function. Yep. So this will return our content type. Again, we need to check whether it is promoted to front or not. So again, for this, we have is promoted function. Okay. So right now, if we edit this node and check whether it is promoted to front page or not, then it is not promoted and it's not even sticky at the top of the list. So for that as well, we have that additional function called is sticky. Then again, we are getting the false value. And for body field or even some other fields, we have different ways of retrieving the value. For example, we need to get the value of the body field. Then generally, what we will do, we will just use node tends to body tends to value, right? So what here we will be getting, it will return only the content, whatever we have added in the body field here. But if we want to know which text format is applied here, or if any other information associated with the CK editor, then we need to use node tends to get function. And inside it, whatever machine name that our field has and tends to get value. So in this case, it will the get value function will always be written in an array format, and it will return all the information related to that field. So here the value of our body field is taste body content and format is basic HTML. We have additional field for CK editor called summary, but as we have used a basic currently it is empty, so summary field is not is null here. And if we have any additional attributes associated with this CK editor, then it will have this value. So in any field, if we want to have the details of all the information related to that field, then we should use this get value. Else we should use body tends to value function. Hope this clarifies this difference between values and get value function. Okay, so next item is terms that we are generally using, but term is not having any major properties apart from this name, weight, and status. So for node, generally we are using this node tends to title function, but for term, we need to use node tends to get name function. And again, weight is for the actual weight for that term, and status is whether that term is active or not. So term is pretty straightforward. And let me just show you one example of node term. So as you can see, I have the entire term loaded. And if I want to get the name of that term, then I'll just simply use the node tends to get name. Okay. So, and likewise the other properties for the term. Okay. So coming towards the user's property. So for getting the user, we have, for example, if we need to get the user details of the current node, then again for node, we have one property called get owner. So in this way, we don't even need to load that owner of node again. It will entirely give you the entire object of user. Right. So as you can see here, the entire user is loaded and all the values I can fetch from this node owner field directly. And generally what people is doing, people just retrieving the node UID equals to dollar node tends to UID value, get author details. But we already have that interface available, and based on that we can use in. Even if we need to get the owner ID, then we have just used this node owner ID. Okay. And for example, if we have the user object already available in our system, so again, there are multiple properties available for user, and how we can retrieve it. We have that username, email, role, password created of that user, the last login time of that user, and the whether the user is active or not. So this will actually return the email address which has been used during the registration. Similarly, we have get account name function, which will return the username of account. Okay. And similarly, we have that roles. So get roles will return all the roles associated with that user. And with the get password, we will retrieve the hash password of that user with created time. This created time will be used for node as well, and as well as the user object. And for that, we have get created time. Okay, so it will return the timestamp where the user has registered their account on the site, and we have user last login time, which will return the timestamp where the user has last login to the website. And as you know, it will return the status according to is active function, whether it will return true or false based on the user current status. Okay. So current user is active, then it will return true function. Okay, so I will be adding all these function names along with the slides so that you can refer that for your next custom modules. Right, so moving ahead to the entity fields. So as we discussed earlier here, we have a value field, we have get value field, and we have get string function as well. So let me give you the explanation. What are the differences between these three functions? Because all of these three functions are for retrieving the value of that field. But in which case, which field should be used? Let's talk about that. So to cover this example, I have used one field here. It is a simple text field. This all of these three functions will work in case of reference entities as well. But the get value field won't, sorry, not well, just this value field won't work in the reference field if it is a multi-valued field. So let's start with text field first. Okay. So as you can see, I have added three values for this field, and let's just get the values here. Okay. So I have used all of those three methods for retrieving the values. Okay. So have you find the differences between them? What are the different return values of each functions? So a value should be used in case of we have only single valued field. If it is a multi-valued field and we need to get the value of the first instance only, then only this value function should be used. Because as you can see here, there are three values we have added, but it is returning only first value. Again, the get value we have discussed earlier, that get value will be return all the details of that particular field, and it will return in an array format. So for example, if you have a simple field, then it will return value. But for example, if you have a reference field, so instead of this value, it will return the target ID of that reference field. And again, it will be in a array format. And if we are using a string, then whether it is a normal field or it is a reference field, it will return a comma separated value of each field values for that particular field. So as you can see here, taste value 1, comma, taste value 2, comma, taste value 3. And let's just check with reference field as well for the same scenario. So we have one multi-value field for term reference as well. Okay, so as you can see, for reference field, this value function isn't working and it is returning the null value. But for get value and get string function, for even entity reference, it is returning some value here. So as I mentioned, for reference field, it will return target ID instead of the value in case of normal field, and all other related information for that particular field. And for get string function, again, it is returning the comma separated value for that target term. Okay, so we have checked the example for normal field as well as the reference field. But the problem here is when we are using either get value or get string function, it is only returning the ID of reference field. So what generally people do, they are getting the target ID of any reference field and then again load that entity using either whether it is a term, then they are using the term load. If it is a user entity, then they are using the user load function. But in Drupal, we have ability to have all the reference field in a single object itself. So how we can do that? So there are multiple ways of getting the values of reference entities from your either node or user or term taxonomy. So let's see how we can directly retrieve the value of the reference fields. So yeah, here is the example. If we have a single value field for a reference entity, in that case, we can use this terminology. So in our case, we have this reference field from the taxonomy term, and it is a single value field. So we can use this method. Let's just use that one. So I have used this term reference field. And as you can see here, it is entity reference from a taxonomy term. Text category. And here we have referenced the taxonomy term ID1 here. So if I refresh this page, it will return the entire term object. So here I have never loaded the taxonomy term using term load function, but still it is returning the reference entity for that particular field. And what if we have multi-valued field for a reference field? For example, we are using reference paragraphs, and which can be multiple. And even for some of the taxonomy terms, we have multi-valued fields. So let's take the example of multi-valued field as well. So this first will return only first value of any reference field. But we have another function, which is get reference entities. So currently I have referenced two terms for this multi-valued field, TechX2 and TechX3. The term ID is respectively 2 and 3. So if I use this function, my node tends to get machine name of my field tends to reference entities. So it will return an array format with all the reference objects, whether it is a taxonomy term, a node reference, paragraph reference, image reference, or any other reference items. So we don't need to load those reference entities again. So as you can see here, the entire object is loaded when I'm using this reference entities function. And from this object, I can get retrieve any field value of that reference field. So people also struggling getting the value of the image with a particular image style. So here I have given an example how we can get the styled image, and either it is absolute path or it is a image URI. So again, I have taken one reference image field here. So we'll check the example with that. If I'm using the value function here, then again, it is a reference entity. So I won't be able to get it through value function. So what people are doing, they are retrieving the value using this get value function or get string function, and they are loading that file. Okay, but the easier way to get the entire file along with the image style is to just use the entity. So instead of this kind of target ID and then getting the loading that file object again, we have that entity function. So it will return the entire file reference file entity. And from that, we just need to use this line of code. So this is the function which we should use in case of using any styled. So as you guys can see, okay, so any styled image that if we want to have in our custom model, then we should use this function for firstly getting the style object. And based on the style object, either we can build the URI as well as the URL, which will return the absolute URL of that path. So currently it is a thumbnail image. And if I go to image style, I have created one image style there. Yeah. So as you can see, it's applying the TechX image style. Right. Okay. So well, that's all for now. So I hope everyone has better clarity on the Drupal entities and fields behavior. So if you have any questions, then we can discuss on that.
Hi guys, thank you for watching. I had an amazing time learning all the new things here at Specbee's TechX. And if you did too, do let us know in the comments below. Keep following Specbee for the latest trends in technology. See you in the next one.